I'll take it from a Kabbalistic point of view, a little spiritual point of view. We understand what it is all about. So we know the Chodesh Kislev, which today is Rosh Chodesh, is the 9th in the count of the months that starts from Nisan, and is the 3rd in the count of the month that starts from Tishrei. So it's 9 and 3. The name Kislev, well, we made a whole Torah out of this, but really the name Kislev comes from a Babylonian name. It's a Babylonian name. It's really called Kislev or something of that sort. Nobody really knows what it means, but we don't just leave things the way they are. We try to find meaning in everything. Even though Kislev is spelled Chaf, Samech, Lamed, Vav, but the Remes Kislev sounds like Kis Velev. It comes about something about the heart. Or it talks about Kisui Lev, covering of the heart. And the idea behind it, that this month, the whole entire nature by itself, unless you live, on the other side of the equator, Australia, South Africa, places like this, I mean, you look at it around us, the whole nature looks like it's covering up, it's dormant, and it's like an internal move inwards. Bears go to become dormant, trees, everything kind of puts slow down. And it's hiding in what we call the winter concealment. Like everything looks like it's dead. The days are getting shorter, nights are getting longer, and darkness is really strengthened in the world. That natural movement really symbolizes the spiritual movement of covering, concealment, that really continues until the great day of Chafei Kislev, where something happens there. Chafei Kislev, of course, that's the miracle where the special light of Hanukkah is being revealed, but it's very symbolic of what happens until then and what happens from that point and on. The astrological sign of this month is Keshet. How do we say it in English?
Arrow.
No, Keshet is a bow.
Sagittarius.
But Sagittarius, exactly it. So the Keshet is the sign of that month. And the first time that a rainbow was shown in the world, it was right after the Mabul, and that happened in Chodesh Kislev. In the 28th of Cheshvan, Koach Cheshvan, Chavchet Cheshvan, Noach came out from the Teva. He brought the korbanot, all the sacrifice that he brought, and when Chodesh Kislev started, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a covenant with him, as it says, Vayomer Elokim Zot Od Habrit Asher Ani Noten Benechem. This is the covenant, the sign of covenant, in which I put in between you and I. In other words, you is humankind and I is Hashem. Uben Kol Nefesh Chaya Asher Itchem Ledorot Olam, until the end of time. Et kashti natati ba'anan. My rainbow I put in the cloud. V'ayta leot brit beini uven haaretz, is going to be a sign of a covenant between me and the land. V'aya be'ananei anan al haaretz v'nirata keshet be'anan, and that's all going to be the rainbow in the clouds and so on and so forth. Now, regardless to modern popular belief, the colors of the rainbow represent something completely different. When in the way it associates itself, the rainbow really symbolizes the revelation of judgment, of din in the world, and remind us all the time the covenant that Kadosh Baruch Hu made with us not to bring a mabul, a flood again. However, it means that we are not doing something right. And I think not for nothing they picked up those colors for representing many other things, and we're not getting into it now. The appearance of the rainbow in the sky is supposed to really waken us and fix our ways, so we won't, because it's an indicator, Habibi, you're not doing something right. So the appearance of a rainbow in the sky, it really shows that it's some din is happening, and we should really do teshuvah and to fix our ways, so it would not happen. So therefore, the month of Kislev is a month of internal work, of avodah pnimit, internal work, which is covered, that needs to be taking place until the light is actually going to be revealed. And in the way of a remez, right, as we say, Kislev is really, we said about Kisui Lev, it's also Kislev. In other words, it's the time to take the heart, the true heart out from all the covers which we put upon ourselves, which we do this all the time. Whether it's political agendas or social agendas and whatever it is, we really need to really reveal the true heart of really who we are, to bring it up to the world, and that needs to be a heart that the whole purpose of it is to give and to influence and to make things better, not to receive and give me, but to give to others, from myself to others. In the month of Kislev, the great darkness of the kingship of Greece is really taking place, which of course it is it's still until today in those periods of time, and in the spiritual realm, it appears even all the time to us, and this time, and so on and so forth. And it's been rejuvenated every year, and we need to fix it every single year. That's why we need a tremendous itorut, awakening, during the time of Kislev, especially now. And the sign for that is we have to hold on to what we call the midah of the Chashmonaim. We have to adapt to the behavior of the Chashmonaim in which they had, to really bring this out, to overcome this. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do so. Among other things that the Chashmonaim did, they were very brave, very brazen, and they were willing to sacrifice themselves for the cause of Am Yisrael, for the spirit of Am Yisrael, because the month of Kislev is all about overcoming darkness in terms of spirituality, taking the essence out of the Jew, of what it means to be a Jew, to have a Jew, to live Jewish life, to be really fighting them, what we call milchamta of the Torah, the war of the Torah itself. So, and what the Chashmonaim did, they really awakened Am Yisrael from the spiritual slumber in which they fell into, and that's why it is quite understood why the sign of this month, of this time, is really the rainbow, the bow and arrow that you need to take, and which is really, as we said, to awaken us to do a certain cheshbon nefesh, to do some kind of like to take an inventory of our actions, of where we're going, because without that covenant that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us of the Brit, we would have a problem in the way we're doing things. We will have another flood that Chas v'Shalom would have destroyed the whole entire world. So now we're talking about sleeping, on slumbering, and so on and so forth. So Rav Shalom Ber, which was the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, says the following: that anybody who is able to fall asleep, that's why sleeping is important. By the way, the Gemara says that if a person says, I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, we give him a patch that he will be able to sleep, because sleeping is essential. But how do I going to make sure that I'm not going to sleep all the time? I'm not going to be in a spiritual coma, but you need to sleep. So Rav Shalom Ber says the following: a person that is able to put himself to sleep could also concentrate himself in tefillah, to have a kavanah, to remove himself from all issues of them. Because if you think about sleeping, it's really a tremendous phenomenon. I mean, you're here, you're busy, you're doing what you're doing, and all of a sudden you close your eyes, you're falling asleep. I mean, it's crazy. Do you ever think about this? It's really crazy. So if you have this ability within yourself, you have the ability to really, during tefillah, when you pray, to really shut down everything around and concentrate on your tefillah. And that's something which is very important to us to understand from a spiritual point of view. That's why it's good to practice also to go to sleep on time and to do things appropriately and so on. Now, this process of sleeping is really a great example of how we could learn naturally how to stop the flow of thoughts that are going on time and time and time again all the time with us, and to really concentrate about what needs to be done and how to do it right and so on. It's very, very important. We're being bombarded all the time with so many ideas and noise and so much hassle that sometimes we lose track of what needs to be done and how to actually do it. And that's something that we must do, and you need to understand. That's why that sleeping is very important. That ability to do so is very, very important. Now, in order to do so, you need to understand. When you, for example, take a seed, a zera, take a seed. You put the seed into the ground, right? Something has to happen. And it's very scary. And I'm going to tell you what. Before we're going to go to this, I'm going to tell you the secret to be able to do all these things is not to be afraid. As Rav Nachman says, Ve'a'ikar lo lefachet klal. Even when you go to sleep. Sleeping, if you think about it, is very scary. Oh my goodness, I'm falling asleep. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to do this, and so on and so forth. Right? There's a sense of anxiety that comes out, if you are not well calibrated about what's going to happen. So I need to, first of all, know not to fall asleep. Now let's go back to a seed. All trees or everything started from a seed. But what happens to a seed that we do? So you take a seed, you put it into the ground. The seed was out here. You put it into the ground. Now in the ground, it's dark. The seed in the ground is dark. And it needs to go into a certain transformation that it's quite scary. In other words, in order for it to grow, it needs to, first of all, rot. It needs to ferment. It needs to shed down his whole entire existence as a seed and turn into something. It needs to turn into a seedling. You need to change your whole entire self of who you really are. So if the seed is going to, in a way, die as a seed, right? You need to not to be afraid. You need to let the water penetrate into you. The seed doesn't want water to go into it, because if water goes into the seed, it will rot, it will die. So the seed does whatever it can to protect himself. But at a certain point, it kind of lets go, and then the water goes inside, and then it starts growing, right? And that fear is what prevents you from changing. I don't want to change. I'm very comfortable in my comfort zone. One of the things to do, get yourself out of the comfort zone. There. Let fear motivate you. Don't let fear immobilize you. Fear should be a catalyst for you to change, to become better, not as a preventer from you from becoming really who you are. And that's the anxiety that happens. We're afraid. So is a person in his spiritual destiny or spiritual journey should not be afraid and close his heart, because in order to create a new reality for yourself, you need to make sure that the old reality does not exist. And that's the beauty of, that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu loves Baalei Teshuvah so much. That's why he likes Baalei Teshuvah, because a Baal Teshuvah took his whole entire reality that was in the past and made it new now. He let it go. He, as an old person, died. That's why Kadosh Baruch Hu loves Gerim. Why does Kadosh Baruch Hu loves Avraham Avinu? Avraham Avinu is the better example. He threw his past behind, and he made a new reality for himself. That's why Kadosh Baruch Hu, the most astonishing things. Kadosh Baruch Hu does not want you to go and be a Rambo. This is the hero of the eyes of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. A person who is willing to let go of his own past, of his own habits, lech lecha, and to do this all the time for the sake of creating a new reality, which is a better reality for people. Not just for yourself, for people, first of all. That's why Avraham Avinu is called Avraham Ohavi, my beloved Avraham. That's why he called him like that. That's why Baalei Teshuvah can stand in a place that the Tzaddik Gadol cannot, because the Tzaddik stays within his path. A Baal Teshuvah killed himself. It was like Yitzchak Avinu, Moshe himself, followed the path of the Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham left everything. Yitzchak gave himself up. You need to give yourself up, but you can't do so if you're holding on to your own past. So in order to do this reality, you need to really do that. The Hebrew sign of this month also is also Keshet, lo kashat. People think it's the archer. It's not an archer. It's the bow itself. So if you look at old Jewish sites where they have the Jewish zodiac, it's always a bow. It's not a person holding the bow. And why? To really symbolize for the rainbow that came up after the Mabul, as we said before, in the month of, the Mabul that took place in the month of Cheshvan. However, why specifically the month of Kislev? So we know that the year is really divided into 4 seasons. well, theoretically speaking, unless you have an Indian summer, but it's always into 4 seasons, and every season represents one of the, we're talking about other stuff, the 4 different elements that there are in the world, which they believe in the old world, but Kabbalistically, we're not talking about the alchemistry here or all kind of Chinese medicine. We're talking about philosophical ideas that represents in those 4 elements, where the stav, which is the fall, really goes with the time of, or with the element of air. Very interesting also in Chinese medicine, the same thing, but that's a different note. It's the element of air, but these are, and the months are the month of Tishrei, right, which is the Betula, the Libra, which is Cheshvan, then we have Cheshvan, and what is it, the Scorpion, and then we have Kislev, which is the Keshet. Okay? So the element of air really represents the balance, which what we call Kav HaEmtzai, the middle line, which is the Machshava, which thought. And since Mazal Keshet, the rainbow, is really the 3rd one in those seasons of the fall, that's the air in between the 3. And that's why people who are born in this under this sign are really great thinkers. They like to think a lot. They become great philosophers. They like to expose themselves to new ideas and new concepts and so on and so forth. However, it's known that Mazal Keshet also represents, or it belongs somewhat to what we call Mazalot Ha'esh, the fire elements. But the strongest influencer is really the air, Mazal Avir, or the element of air, by being the 3rd one. Of course, that's the shifting, the transition parts. But the beauty of that it's the Koach Emtzai, that's the central piece, the Kav HaEmtzai, the Koach Emtzai, which really comes to balance between the need to give to the need to get. And that's the Kav HaEmtzai, is to receive in order to get. One side is always wants to give. It usually represents by the signs of the Virgo and so on and so forth. And the opposite is going to be the Scorpion. That's the balance in between. That's the balance in between, which is receiving in order to give. Receiving in order to give. And that is very powerful in here. The Zohar teaches us that the rainbow we're talking in the sky, really teaches us also the Kav HaEmtza, which is the power of balance. The collections of colors in it really represents the existence of all 3 forces in it, which is Kav Yamin, Kav Smol, the Kav HaEmtza, right, left, and center. In our world today, there's hardly any center. It's either black or white, right or left. There's no middle, and that's terrible. We live in a very unbalanced world. Our goal is not to take sides. Our goal is to actually create, and not saying sitting there doing nothing. It's actually to create a center, to create a balancing force. And that's a tremendous task. The Zohar teaches us that, as we said before, that the rainbow appears where people are really destroying what's around them. And that's the deen. You are destroying the world. We are destroying the world. And the appearance of the rainbow really represents, as we said, the covenant, the promise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to us, and what he kind of sends to this world, the shefa that comes to this world, the energy of balance that really is basically the only thing that allows us to continue to exist. If you become too extreme, whether to the left or to the right, that's going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end. You have to be balanced. Now, in entering the month of Kislev really can give everybody a certain calm. And that's why, in a way, this month we all become like the people of Sagittarius, and everything looks actually good and could become wonderful, but we have to be very careful not to fall and not to be sucked in to the feeling of like great euphoria that is going to put you fall asleep, and then you're going to be spiritually sleeping or whatever. And this is the reason why Hanukkah comes like this. Because what happened during this time, came the Greek, and they make life very difficult for us. And while we said, nicht gefährlich, as they say in Yiddish, no, not so bad, we took another decree. This one, okay, it's all good. We took so much, we became almost numb. We needed to create an upward motion. That's the Chashmonaim that came and really woken us up to really try to, and that's tremendous. That's the tremendous miracle of Hanukkah. Not just the candles, but the fact that we realized that we need to actually fight for what we know is Jewishly right, and until the point we didn't fight for it. Today also, we don't really fight on what we know is to be the Kav Emtzai in the existence of Am Yisrael. We don't fight for it. We try to accommodate, we try to appease. We're not trying to fight what we know is right. And Nes is from Lanus, to run away, to really change nature for our nature, and to know and to say that until now there are things that, this is it. There are certain things we cannot compromise on, and now we need to create. And that is the reason why we're going to get what is good. Now look at the years, at the months of the year. The months of the year are like this. We have Tishrei. Everything looks great in Tishrei. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we're wearing white, Sukkot, Simchat Bet HaShoeva, Simchat Torah. It's wonderful. That's like when you were a kid. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All of a sudden comes Cheshvan. And now Cheshvan will be your adult years. When you realize that the normal holidays, and you just have to work and work and work and work and work and work and work, when you don't put anything spiritual to it, at the end comes to you the darkness that we are in Chodesh Kislev. The nights are very long, and it seems it's more darkness than there is light, and it seems hopeless. You need to go and put yourself spiritually. Start with a small candle. Start with a small light. That's why Hanukkah goes from 1 candle to 8 candles. When you are able to connect to this Kav Emtzai, to the middle line in you, when you're able to erase your old self of who you were, to start something new, to start working on your spirit, to start influencing and to give from yourself for the sake of others, then the light is mitgaber. The light goes on and on and on and on. There might be a little hiccup in the road of Asara B'Tevet, but you are continuing on that path. Before you know, all of a sudden, in the middle of the winter, you have Tu Bishvat. Things, the Shkedia Porachat, Arvolikas del Almendras, right? The Shkedia Porachat. Before you know, Purim. And that is the distance to Pesach, to actual freedom. Your freedom in Pesach depends on the work that you're going to do at the greatest darkness of Mitzrayim, of the Choshech of Mitzrayim, the greatest darkness that you're going to have during this month, and how you're going to bring the darkness is darkness of spirit. When your spirit, that's what you need to do. So your freedom is dependent on that. Again, don't forget, we always said that the distance between Rosh Hashanah to Hanukkah is almost the distance between Hanukkah and Pesach. It's right there. It's right there. Hanukkah is the middle, is the Kav Emtzai, and the Kav Emtzai can only start with spiritual growth. So Rabotai, so you should look forward for this month. Try to be mitgaber on your old habits. Try to be Moser Nefesh for you, for the sake of Am Yisrael, for the sake of the Torah, for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To be Moser Nefesh for what you know, do the Avodah Ruchanit. Try to elevate yourself spiritually during this month. Look forward for Hanukkah. Don't just look to light the candles, but even more so. Light this fire inside of you, the light of Torah, the light of true Jewish life in you. And Bezrat Hashem, we shall come to Pesach. This Pesach, Bichlal, all together as Bnei Chorim in Eretz Yisrael, Bimera B'Yameinu, Amen. Amen. Is a way to send it to him?